Imagine a sports team named after a literal demigod.
Mhm.
I mean, we are talking about a full century of history here.
Oh, yeah, legendary players, an absolute army of diehard fans.
Right. Fans whose parents and grandparents, practically bled for the club.
Exactly.
Now, imagine that exact same team fighting for its very survival against, well, a nameless, faceless corporate startup that didn't even exist a decade ago.
It sounds totally made up.
It really does. But it isn't a movie script. It actually happened this week in Greece, and the collision between these two, fundamentally different worlds is just absolutely incredible.
It is, it's honestly a perfect case study in how the modern business of sports completely dictates the physical reality of what happens on the pitch.
Yeah.
You basically have deep history colliding head-on with this ruthless hyper-efficiency.
Which is exactly why today we are diving into a stack of sources centered around this recent Greek Cup second qualifying round match.
A fascinating match, really.
Totally. We have a detailed tactical breakdown of the game itself, but we also have the deep, turbulent historical backgrounds of the two clubs involved, which are Iraklis and Volos FC.
And you really need both of those perspectives to understand the final scoreline, you know?
Right, you can't just look at the numbers.
Exactly. You can't look at a 3-1 victory in isolation when the institutional realities of these two squads are just light years apart.
So true. So the mission for today's deep dive is to really break down Volos' victory over Iraklis for you. But we aren't just going to sit here and read you the box score.
No, definitely not.
We are dissecting the psychology of momentum, the cold reality of tactical efficiency, and what this single match reveals about the shifting landscape of modern football. Okay, let's unpack this.
Right. So to understand the tactical decisions made during those 90 minutes, we really have to look at the trajectories that brought these two 22-man squads to the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
Because the contrast in their organizational structures, it essentially determined how they handled adversity during the game.
Right. And as I was reading through the club histories in our sources, I kept coming back to this specific analogy to kind of wrap my head around it all. Tell me if this tracks for you.
Okay, let's hear it.
So Volos FC, they operate like a highly efficient, data-driven tech startup.
Oh, I like that.
Right. They don't have a massive board of directors demanding adherence to, the old ways. They see a tactical inefficiency, they exploit it, and they scale up quickly.
Spot on.
But Iraklis, on the other hand, is like this massive legacy automaker. They have this incredibly famous brand name, but they are carrying decades of debt, institutional inertia, and just the massive weight of fan expectations.
Which makes it nearly impossible to pivot when things go wrong.
Exactly.
The underlying mechanisms there are just completely spot on. Let's actually look at the legacy automaker first.
Let's do it.
So Iraklis was founded way back in 1908. Their nicknames translate to the Elder, or Jurios, and demigod in Mythos, obviously after Hercules.
Which is such a cool nickname, by the way.
Yeah. It's amazing. And they are one of the most historic clubs in Greece. I mean, they won the Greek Cup in 1976.
Wow.
They had absolute superstars like Vasilis Hatzipanagis, who is a genuine legend in Greek football, playing for them during their golden era. They were a total top-tier fixture.
But as we know, having a rich history doesn't exactly pay the stadium electricity bills today.
It really doesn't.
And the recent history in our sources is just brutal. I mean, it's a story of sheer desperate survival.
Yeah, they have faced decades of financial collapse. And it's crucial for you to understand how that actually impacts a football club.
Right, it's not just about the game.
Exactly. They weren't just relegated down the leagues because they were playing poorly. They were demoted because of unpaid debts and failing to secure professional licenses.
It's rough.
Imagine trying to recruit a striker when you literally can't guarantee his paycheck will clear. They've had to essentially dissolve and reform multiple times as a Phoenix club.
Right, and for those of you who might not follow the business side of European soccer, a Phoenix club is basically a legal loophole, right?
Very much, yeah.
The original business entity dies from bankruptcy. So the fans and investors attach the famous brand name and the colors to a completely different lower-tier team just to keep the identity alive.
That is the physical reality of their existence right now. Currently, they are competing as POT Iraklis down in Super League 2, which is the second tier.
Right.
So they carry the immense weight of their history, but they are operating with the shattered infrastructure of a club constantly fighting off the debt collectors.
And, there was one detail from the match report that I thought perfectly illustrated how this, infrastructural instability actively hurts them on match day.
The stadium issue.
Yes. This was technically Iraklis' home game in the Cup. But they couldn't even play it in their historic home ground, the Kaptondolio Stadium in Thessaloniki.
Which is just crazy.
They actually had to relocate the match to the city of Saris.
Which completely strips away the primary advantage of a cup tie for a lower division team.
Right, because usually that's their biggest weapon.
Exactly. When a smaller club hosts a giant, the advantage is the familiarity of the locker room, the specific cut of the grass, and having, 20,000 screaming local fans intimidating the visitors.
Yeah.
But by moving to Saris, Iraklis had to travel. They lost their routine. They were effectively playing a neutral site game.
So they're carrying all that historical and logistical baggage. They look across the pitch, and they see Volos FC, the tech startup.
The perfect contrast. Volos was founded in 2017.
Not in 1917.
No, 2017. And the mechanism of their rise is pure, ruthless, modern football business. They didn't spend decades organically climbing the amateur leagues.
Right, they skipped the line.
They absorbed a club called Pydna Kitros to immediately take their spot in the lower professional pyramid, just completely bypassing years of struggle. And within a couple of years, they rocketed up to Super League One.
And they just stayed there. Like our sources note, they finished 8th in the top flight in the 2025-26 season, and they play in the Panthesilikos Stadium, which is this state-of-the-art venue built for the 2004 Olympics.
So if we connect this to the bigger picture, you're looking at a matchup where off-pitch structure directly dictates on-pitch capability.
Definitely.
Iraklis is fueled by passion, survival instinct, and deep emotional roots. But Volos has no historical baggage, no legacy debt holding back their scouting department, and no structural instability.
They're a streamlined machine.
Built entirely for top-tier survival.
But, the whistle blows, the spreadsheet gets put away, and it's just 11 humans against 11 humans. And according to the match report, the game actually started pretty evenly.
It did.
Iraklis didn't come out looking intimidated at all. But in the 22nd minute, the first blow lands. Sotiris Katsikas scores for Volos 1-0. And he scores from a set-piece situation.
Which is really telling. The mechanism of that goal is highly revealing.
How?
Well, a set piece, like a corner kick or a free kick, is a dead ball situation. It is the one moment in a fluid game like soccer where you can run a highly choreographed, practiced routine.
Oh, right, because everything stops.
Exactly. It is a controlled environment. When a top-tier team scores from a set piece against a lower-tier team, it usually points to superior coaching resources, video analysis, and clinical repetition on the training ground.
It's a preparation paying off.
Yeah, and it allowed Volos to settle their nerves and immediately shifted all the pressure onto Iraklis.
And honestly, I expected Iraklis to just fold right there.
Yeah.
You have a second-tier team displaced from their stadium, conceding early to a top-flight opponent. It has all the makings of an absolute blowout.
But they don't collapse.
They don't. Our sources detailed that Iraklis was using a 4-2-3-1 tactical formation.
It's a very pragmatic shape for an underdog.
Make it hard to break down.
Right. Think of it like a reinforced shield. You have your standard 4 defenders, but sitting right in front of them are 2 holding defensive midfielders.
Just clogging everything up.
They clog up the center of the pitch, frustrating the superior team by taking away their passing lanes. Meanwhile, you leave a lone striker up top as a release valve for when you do win the ball back.
And that release valve actually works. Like, just before halftime, Iraklis springs forward. They put together this brilliant attacking move.
Yeah, out of nowhere.
Carl Soria spots the opening, provides the assist, and Christian Koushta finishes it, 1-1. The Super League 2 side actually equalizes against the Super League 1 side.
The psychological surge of a moment like that, it just cannot be overstated.
I can imagine.
They proved to themselves that they belonged on the same grass. They pierced the armor of the top-tier machine. If they ride that high into the halftime locker room, the entire complexion of the game changes.
Yeah, the coach's job becomes so easy at that point to just feed that belief.
Exactly.
But they didn't get to the locker room with that belief because in the 4th minute of first half stoppage time, literally 45 plus 4 foot on the clock, Hamza Essaoubi finds the back of the net for Volos.
A total heartbreaker.
The startup goes back up, 2-1, right before the referee blows the whistle for the break.
That sequence right there is the defining pivot point of the match.
Which brings up something I have to ask you regarding the sports psychology here.
Okay, sure.
Is it worse to concede a goal immediately after you've just scored your own because your adrenaline is instantly weaponized against you? Or is it, like, mathematically worse to concede seconds before the halftime whistle?
Well, it is the catastrophic combination of both in this case. But conceding right before the whistle is a unique kind of poison.
Really? Why?
Think about the physical reality of the locker room. If you concede in the 30th minute, you can immediately run around, yell, try to win a tackle, and physically work out the frustration.
You can stay in the flow of the game.
Right. But if you concede at 45+4, you have to walk off the pitch in silence. You have to sit in a room for 15 minutes and just stare at the floor.
Ugh, that's brutal.
The match report explicitly points to the timing of Essaoubi's goal as decisive because it completely evaporated the emotional capital Iraklis had just spent 10 minutes building.
Man, they burned all that energy climbing the mountain to tie the game, and Volos just coldly pushed them off the cliff right before they could rest.
And that emotional deflation leads directly to tactical indiscipline in the second half.
They start making mistakes.
When a team feels desperate, they abandon their structure.
Which brings us to the knockout punch, the 60th minute. Volos strings together this rapid attacking move, Joca gets the final touch, and it's 3-1.
Game over, essentially.
Here's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Because you noted in the prep notes that a 2-goal deficit fundamentally alters the geometry of the pitch.
It changes everything about how space is managed.
Explain that for us.
When you are down 2-1, you are still only one lucky bounce away from tying the game. You can maintain that compact 4-2-3-1 shield we talked about and just wait for a counterattack.
Keep it tight.
Right. But when you go down 3-1, especially in a knockout cup competition where goal difference doesn't matter and a loss is a loss, you have no choice. You have to take extreme risks.
Meaning Iraklis had to totally abandon that defensive shield.
Exactly. They had to push their defensive line much higher up the field to try and suffocate Volos and win the ball closer to the goal.
There's a catch.
A huge catch. When your defenders push up, they leave 40 yards of open, undefended grass behind them.
Okay, wait, I'm looking at the tactical summary here, and I'm genuinely confused.
Yeah.
If they are down 3-1 to a team that is already faster and better resourced, shouldn't they just pack it in so they don't get humiliated? Why did being down 2 goals force them to actively make their defense worse? Because the institutional mandate of a historic club like Iraklis doesn't allow for damage control. The fans who traveled to Sarah's didn't come to watch them politely lose 3-1. They demand a fight. So the manager has to push bodies forward, effectively creating a tactical trap that Volos is uniquely equipped to exploit. Because Volos doesn't care about the romance of a comeback. They just see the math.
Precisely. What's fascinating here is how perfectly the Gazzetta match report captured this dynamic. They described Volos' performance as excellent, and specifically highlighted their ability to react quickly to adversity.
They just adapted.
Once Volos went up 3-1, they didn't need to dominate ball possession anymore. They were perfectly happy to sit back, let Iraklis pass the ball around in harmless areas, and just wait for a mistake.
The sources draw a really stark contrast here. Like, Iraklis had possession in the second half. They showed incredible character.
They really did.
They didn't quit. They were sprinting, tackling, trying to create chances. They were expending a massive amount of physical effort. But they couldn't find a second goal.
Right.
Volos, conversely, was described simply as clinical.
We see this in business all the time, organizations confusing motion with progress.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Iraklis had the ball, they were sweating, sprinting, racking up possession statistics. That's motion. But Volos didn't care about possession, they cared about space.
Yeah. They let Iraklis exhaust themselves doing the busy work, waited for a single misplaced pass, and exploited the empty space behind the defense.
It's a brutal reminder for you, honestly, that in elite sports, and really in daily life, whether you are managing a project or running a business, the reward goes to the clinical strike, not the busiest participant.
Absolutely.
You can run around the office for 10 hours a day, but if you aren't converting that effort into an actual result, the person who worked for 2 hours and actually closed the deal is going to win. And Volos was the team closing the deal.
They understood that efficiency is about maximum impact for minimum unnecessary exertion. They conserved their energy, absorbed the desperate pressure from Iraklis, and managed the remaining 30 minutes of the game without ever truly looking threatened.
It's a harsh reality check. As someone reading the history of these clubs, you almost want Iraklis to pull off the miracle because of everything they've been through.
It's hard not to root for them.
But effort doesn't rewrite the laws of modern football. It doesn't. The tactical discipline of a well-resourced club will almost always neutralize the emotional adrenaline of an underdog over a full 90 minutes.
So let's wrap up the narrative of this specific match. Volos comfortably advances to the league phase of the Greek Cup.
Yeah.
They put in a ruthlessly efficient, highly professional performance that proves exactly why they belong in Super League One. Meanwhile, Iraklis faces elimination. They put up a spirited, highly competitive effort. But ultimately, the gap in clinical finishing, infrastructural resources, and tactical management was just too wide to bridge.
But the implications of this matchup stretch far beyond a single tournament bracket.
So what does this all mean? We started this deep dive by contrasting the histories of these two organizations, the century-old demigod burdened by its own legacy, and the decade-old startup built for immediate results.
This raises an important question, and it's a philosophical tension that sits at the very heart of modern sports.
I love these kinds of questions.
Look at Iraklis. Yes, they lost. Yes, they are in the second tier. But they have survived over a century. They have literally survived world wars, massive economic depressions, bankruptcies, and complete identity changes.
It's pretty amazing when you list it out like that.
Their survival is fueled by a root system in their community that is incredibly deep and entirely emotional. A fan of Iraklis loves the club because of the suffering, not in spite of it.
And then you look at Volos. They bypass the suffering entirely. They utilize corporate loopholes to rocket to the top tier in less than 10 years through pure, streamlined, modern efficiency.
Right.
They are successful, but do they have that same soul?
For you to mull over as you close out this deep dive, in the grand, long run of sports history, what ultimately builds a stronger, more enduring legacy? Is it the emotional resilience, the community passion, and the shared suffering of a deeply flawed historic institution that simply refuses to die? Or is it the streamlined, clinical, results-driven machinery of a modern franchise that prioritizes winning above all else?
It's the romance of the past colliding with the cold reality of the present. And on this particular night, on a neutral pitch in Sarah's, the reality of the present took the win. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive. Keep asking questions, keep looking for the mechanisms beneath the surface, and keep exploring the fascinating stories hidden within your sources. Catch you next time.